Hello everybody, hope you're doing okay. Now you might be wondering why I'm holding up the Adios Pro 4 here. Well, apart from the fact it's quite a nice shoe, but unfortunately this one is a bit small. What I thought I would do is a bit of a running YouTuber news style review of all the best of 2024 shoes and do a bit of an aggregation of them with a bit of a point scoring system to work out my take on the best shoes as ranked by all the YouTubers. So I've selected 26 YouTubers, including myself, with all 4 of the run testers and 4 of the doctors of running. And there's a bit of a bonus one there, a blank one. You might be able to guess who that is. So as you might imagine, I've compiled a bit of a spreadsheet to get all this stuff together. And it's amazing the number of shoes that are actually mentioned. You would think it's going to be a bit of a clear-cut choice between all the YouTubers. But amazingly, in the best of videos, a grand total of 73 different shoes were mentioned. So what I've done is that if somebody did a video with just a straight 10, that's easy. The first place gets a 10 points down to 1 for 10th place. If they did a top 5, I did it 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. If they just did a sort of best in category and with an overall, I gave 10 to the best one and then just sort of spread out the scores. So they were fairly even across the way. So as an example here with Scuso running Chris, I put in the spreadsheet his choices here. The Supernova Rise was his first place and then given that 10 points. And then second place was the Pegasus Plus, 9 points, so on and so forth. HM is honourable mention. I decided in the end just to rank the top 10 by the points. And he even had a hated shoe, which was the Deviate Nitro 3, which was bizarrely the shoe that was most liked by Kofuzi, which perhaps already illustrates how the diversity of choices there are in these videos. So in 10th place in my listing here is the Mark 6, beloved of Andy Rayner, the FOD runner. I think he did more buzzing runs in this one than any other shoe put together this year. I think he got it to about 300, 400 miles. I had the shoe as well. I didn't really get on with it quite so well. I'd never quite really sort of liked myself to Hoka's. I don't know if it was the 5mm drop or anything, but Andy certainly liked this one. And I think he also likes a lightweight shoe that doesn't have a plate that he can do for long runs as well as his sessions on the trails or on the road here. So I think, yeah, for him, a very good choice. But for me, when I wore that the first time, I got a bit of a blood blister, so that didn't really help, did it? So anyway, that was actually listed by 6 different YouTubers, and it was actually the favourite of 2. So as well as Andy, the Mach 6 was also the favourite shoe of Lloyd Purvis from Run for Adventure, and here he is styling them in very sort of matching socks. He also had the Rebel V4 and the Zoomfly 6 in his top 3. He did a top 3 video, so yeah, some good choices there for sure, and 3 shoes that I've actually got. The Zoomfly 6, we'll come on to that one a bit later. So in 9th place with a total of 38 points and liked by 5 YouTubers with 2 as their favourite is the Neo Vista here from Mizuno, this sort of booty style upper one. I didn't really fancy the light look of this one. I thought booty uppers for my narrow feet wouldn't be any good, so I passed on this one, but it was very, very well received, this shoe this year, and I think it sort of got Mizuno in the limelight, didn't it? Because the other favourite of this one was also Orbi Running, who really was heavily into Mizuno. You might even thought he was a bit of the Mizuno king. But yeah, Run R from Australia here, very keen on this one for sure. He didn't like the Pegasus though. I think he just prefers these softer shoes. Now in 8th place with a total of 46 points and liked by 8 YouTubers, with Matt here from Doctors of Running being the sole person to put it at the top, but a very well received shoe. And I think Brooks are really heavily going to these Max shoes. I think some YouTubers are saying, well, just abandon the normal ones. I think Kofuzi said that today, abandon the normal ones and go straight to these Max ones with softer, higher stack and less drop. So yeah, it's interesting, a bit of the change there for Brooks, because you all sort of imagine the Brooks as being like the Ghost and the Glycerin, and as the versions don't really change much. But it was a bit difficult with Matt because he didn't really do sort of his out and out best shoe. So when I wasn't quite sure, I heard a bit of intuition with what shoes I thought that people would like the most based on what shoes they wore the most and just a sort of general vibe about it. But yeah, this one, I certainly thought that this one was Matt's favourite. He may disagree with me if he ever comes to look at this one. But another shoe that I didn't really like the fancy of, I think these sort of soft high stack shoes in my size UK 13 just can become really, really sort of heavy and cumbersome. I tried the Invincible. I quite like it for recovery runs, but sometimes I think if I'm that beat up for a run, then maybe the best thing to do is have a rest day. Now, next up in 7th place, we've got the Metaspeed Sky Paris. I've decided to group the Sky Paris and Sky Edge separately because they are 2 different shoes liked by a different set of people. But if you added the scores for those 2 together, they may just almost slightly make the top. I think they would have just come in second. But this is Nick Harris Fry from the Run Testers. And definitely I think this is his favourite shoe. He didn't actually categorically say it was his favourite, but he keeps going on about it. It's definitely his favourite race shoe, and I think very much a person that always comes across as liking the faster shoes, because he is a very fast runner himself, of course, a way under sub 2:30 marathon runner, and I think he's now sub 32 in the 10K as well, so very impressive running for sure. And unfortunately the Sky Paris and the Sky Edge and the Superblast, ASICS don't seem to like people with big feet, so they stop at UK 12. So I'm always moaning about the fact that I can't try these, but on the other hand, save a lot of money. I've heard rumours that they're going to do the bigger sizes in the next version of these ones, so I'll be looking forward to that one. Is this a shoe that you like? Do you prefer the Edge or the Paris? Spoiler alert, the Edge is still to come, so actually the Edge was proved slightly more popular, which I think was quite unusual, because I think in the past the Sky was always the one that had all the headlines, and the Edge always got no sort of love at all, but now it seems to be almost the reverse actually. Now in 6th place we got the Novablast 5 here. This is Confusi modelling this one. Now this wasn't actually, interestingly, anybody's favourite, although Andy Rayner, the FOD runner, would have probably put the Novablast 5 as his favourite if he'd have got it a bit earlier on in the year. This is actually the colourway I got. I actually ended up getting 2 pairs because I thought my first one got lost by ASICS and they turned up, and then I've already ordered the teal version. So I ended up taking the teal version, the green one, over to Portugal and leaving it there, and I'll have a nice shoe to run when I get back. I never been overly impressed by the Novablast. I always think it was a bit of a ploddy shoe, but it's certainly a shoe that you feel like you can take out and take a bit of a strain off your legs, although I never found it a fast shoe. But Andy Reynolds used to sort of say you can do anything in it, and he literally was down to 5:30 pace in a long run the other day. I think he sort of averaged just over 6-minute mile pace. I think I'd be struggling to do that as a flat out session these days. But yeah, it just goes to show sometimes it's more about the runner than the shoe. But I think a very capable shoe. And the only thing I would say about the Novablast 5 is that if the Superblast 2 is anything like it, then I don't think I'd be one of those people that would overly like the Superblast 2, because I always feel I got a lot of shoe on with the Novablast 5, and I feel that wide base. Although I think the Novablast 5 actually is probably, in a way, probably so far the version I'm liking the best. It seems to fit me the best. It's not quite as long or wide as the previous versions. I think it's now more true to size, because I always thought the previous versions were always basically running half a size too big. So I did try the size down in the Novablast 3, and then perhaps I wish to have the size in the middle, which they don't do, which is kind of the problem at the moment with the Adizero Pro 4. Anyway, that's the green one there, is the Novablast 4. Got a few votes for that over the year. Some people's sort of definition of what's 2024 shoes varied slightly. So some people included the 4, some people included the 5. I tend to think it's a 2024 shoe because I bought it in 2024. So now we come on to the Metaspeed Edge Paris in 5th place. This got 50 points with mentions by 7 YouTubers and was favourite by just one here, the Midlife Runner. I wasn't totally sure whether it was his favourite, but I decided to give that accolade to him. He seemed to be pleased with the shoe. And here he is running in it. So his channel's doing very well. He's just overtaken me as subscribers. So yeah, well done to him. Maybe I'll need to upload a few comedy shorts and I'll get a few more subscribers. Anyway, so good to see that Midlife Runner is doing well. Maybe I'll be invited on for an interview, because I see he's interviewed a few other YouTubers on this one. So yeah, I'll be up for that if you're interested. But as I said, the Metaspeed Edge Paris is a shoe that unfortunately I can't try because I don't do my size. But anyway, it seems to be a very good shoe for sure. So I'm in 4th place, just a point ahead of 5th place at 51 points, mentioned by 8 YouTubers, and I decided that Matt Bertram here, It's Matt B, liked this shoe the most of the ones he did. He didn't really explicitly say which ones of these ones he's showing you that he liked the best, but I thought the general vibe, it seems to be the best from this one. He just had a few problems, as did other people, with potential rubbing at the back there, but otherwise he said he found it a very good shoe. It's interesting to see he's got 2 Hoka shoes on the lineup there, and not really any of the shoes that I would have gone for at all. I think they've got the SL2 on the end, which I've got, but I never actually run in that one very much in the end. And some of the other ones, like the Metaspeed on the end, that I can't try, and those New Balance ones, well, they all seem just so wide. And the Glycerin Max, as I said earlier. So yeah, it's interesting how the different tastes are. And Matt B is actually only a size less than me, so he's got quite big feet. So in that sense, all the concerns I have about high stack shoes, he doesn't seem to be particularly concerned about. So it's interesting how those sort of variations happen, isn't it? Oh, and I see there it's the New Balance SC Trainer V3. He sort of said that that was his sort of second choice in that sort of category of plated super trainers. So moving along now to 3rd place, and we got the Alphafly 3. Now, interestingly, only Ed Budd here actually had this as his best shoe of 2024. And it was interesting with Ed because he didn't actually like this shoe that much when he first reviewed it, and then all of a sudden, he's now got 3 pairs of them. So yeah, go from one extreme to the other, don't he? So yeah, it's interesting how sort of opinions can vary between the first review and a bit later when you use it a bit more. Personally, I never sort of found much love for the Alphafly. I wore it for a week, did about 50 miles in it, and I wore it again more recently, and I still found it rather heavy and bulbous and just sort of clumpy and just too much shoe. I think Andy Rayner feels the same. In the UK 13, it's quite heavy and it's quite wide. You feel like you've got an awful lot of shoe on. It almost feels like you've got a mini boot on. I mean, it's all quite light when you pick it up, but it's a lot heavier than, say, a Vaporfly or the Deviate Nitro 3 Elite that Andy has got recently, and I've also been succumbed to buying one as well. And apparently that's the same weight as the Vaporfly 3. So it's about 40 grams lighter than this Alphafly 3 here. But yeah, it's definitely very keen on this Alphafly. And that got 61 points and was mentioned in the top 10, as I worked it out, by 10 ShoeTubers out of the 26 that I featured. So it's interesting that in itself, isn't it? We're already in the top 3, and not even the majority of people are putting shoes in the top 3 in their list. So moving along now to number 2 in our list. This is the Nike Zoom Fly 6, which also is my favourite shoe of the year. So it's interesting, Jason Jogs here. His top 2 shoes were the same top 2 as me, Nike Zoom Fly 6 and the Pegasus 41. I put it second, largely because of the fact that I actually run the most miles in it, in the Pegasus 41. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's the most wonderful shoe ever, but it's a shoe as a daily trainer that I feel that just gets the work done. But this Zoom Fly 6 really was a revelation. I thought, well, after the Zoom Fly 3 and the 5 which I had, I mean, normally I'm a bit of a Nike fanboy, but I really did find those 2 shoes absolutely terrible. They really were the classic sort of bricks. I think I did a Zoom Fly 5 video, which did quite well, by the fact I stood and said it was a brick before anyone else. But yeah, sometimes I'd rather wish a shoe that was actually any good than waste a lot of money on it and just get a few YouTube views. But anyway, yeah, the Zoom Fly 6, I was started wearing it quite a lot now for sessions, which gives a change from having the Vaporflies. And it's a bit heavier than the Vaporfly, so you feel like you're sort of in a training shoe more, but it doesn't feel as heavy as it feels. I mean, the Novablast is actually lighter, but the Zoom Fly 6 just does, as its name says, it does sort of feel like you're flying along. I think it's a mixture of the ZoomX foam and the Carrier foam, which is still sort of fairly soft, so although it gives a bit more resilience, it's certainly good. And the big good thing for me is that with the Achilles flare there, it doesn't seem to aggravate my Achilles as much as some shoes. The Novablast 5 is not too bad, but I do notice with that very padded heel counter that it does after a while start to feel like it's sort of digging in, whereas the Zoom Fly 6, I feel like I'm a lot happier in that shoe for sure. So we had 86 points for this one, and it was actually mentioned by 11 YouTubers, but only Jason and myself put it as the very top, which is another interesting point in itself, isn't it? So the number 1 shoe, as ranked by my YouTubers using my system, not surprising, was the Superblast 2, and this was the favourite of Emily Heller, Run Like Hella here. So yeah, this was actually got 100 points, was listed by 13, which is exactly half of the YouTubers I featured, and was favoured by 4, which was easily the most. The next highest sort of favourite shoe was only 2, and as well as Run Like Hella, also had Ben Parks loving it. I think he's got about 3 pairs of it. I also decided that Tom from the Run Testers and Alex Velocty also thought that it was their favourite shoe. They didn't explicitly say, but the general vibe I got from their videos indicated that. So yeah, another shoe, unfortunately, being ASICS that I can't try. And there's another one that on the left that I haven't got either. So yeah, it just goes to show so many different good shoes at the moment, and you don't have to all have the same one really at the moment, do you? So let's go back and have a look at the spreadsheet and see how some of the other shoes that I haven't listed yet fared. So here we go. This is the top 20 in view here. We've already mentioned the top 10. So the Rebel V4 just missed the top 10 by the narrowest of margins. I decided if it was a tie on points, I would then decide the ties by the number of YouTubers that mentioned it. And if there's still a tie, I would do it on the number of wins. So the Rebel V4 lost out to the Mach 6 by the fact that nobody actually put it as their favourite shoe, as far as I could see. And Rebel V4, I think it was sort of a good shoe for people with wider feet, but it was a shoe that came in a normal width, which was a wide, and they also did a wide version. So I really thought that I was struggling with that one a bit, but it was nice and light and 5mm drop. So again, you've got to be dialed into that sort of drop, haven't you? I remember doing a few good runs in it, but I felt like I had to put in the laces so much, almost like a tug-of-war contest to get it in. So yeah, not really a shoe for narrow-footed runners for sure. And in 12th place, we got the SL2. It was quite a hype shoe in a way, wasn't it? I think the fact it was very cheap and had Light Strike Pro in it, I think it got a bit sort of blown out of the water by the Evo SL. But that came in quite close. It was actually favoured by Believe in the Run, which I thought was interesting for them because they get a chance to try on all the shoes at all price points, and they voted that as themselves. They didn't actually get their own sort of listing with all the different individual members of Believe in the Run. And then the Deviate Nitro Elite 3. Now, this is a shoe I've actually just ordered, so it might be coming next day or two. Andy Rayner's done a very good first review of it, so I'm very promising, and especially as the Adios Pro 4. Unfortunately, going to have to send this one back because it's just not big enough for me. So yeah, I decided to go with the Deviate Nitro Elite 3, and I think it's quite a narrow shoe relatively, so long and narrow is ideal, and Puma are a bit like that, so maybe not like everyone's cup of tea, but it should suit me quite well, so look forward to that one. And I think Andy's already buzzing about it, so it must be good, mustn't it? Now, completely different type of shoe, just literally one place below was the Ultra Max Cushion MagMax. Well, I thought Ioana liked this one the most. He did a video where he had his top 5 shoes, but didn't really say which was his favourite. So I looked on Strava and saw that he actually ran the most amount of miles in that one. So it was a close thing between the Alphafly 3 and the MagMax. So I think I gave the Alphafly 3 for him up there and put the MagMax in as his favourite. So yeah, if that's wrong, apologies. And I thought it was interesting that the Endorphin Speed 4 only came out as 15th. I mean, a couple of years ago, that was kind of everyone's favourite shoe. And I still think the shoe is a good shoe, but I think it's perhaps sort of lost its way a bit in terms of like other shoes have caught up, because now with the Zoom Fly 6, I'm kind of thinking I much prefer to reach for the Zoom Fly 6 over the Speed 4, even though I'd already done quite a lot of miles earlier this year in the Speed 4. But when I tried on the Speed 4 recently, I found it was digging into my Achilles a bit, so I was quite glad to get it off. Maybe I was just particularly bad that day. But we did have 2 YouTubers, Kieran from the Run Testers, who's probably, other than Ioana, the one who goes out and does the most sort of dedicated runs. If he says a shoe's good for a marathon, he literally will go out and his door and run a marathon. Not obviously at race speed, but yeah, got to be dedicated to his testing. And Nathan from the Doctors of Running. Again, I wasn't totally sure whether that was his favourite, but I gave it to him on that score. But only 6 YouTubers mentioned it in their top 10. I had it in my top 10, but literally partly for the fact that I didn't have overly many shoes this year. I think I only had about 15 to choose from. So there was a few that I had to leave out. So next we got the Pegasus Plus, which I put as 3rd in my list with the Speed 4 as 4th there. I think in a way I was just glad to get the turbo back on my feet again, although I was a bit disappointed with it relative to the old turbos, but I think I'm a bit of a Nike fanboy, aren't I? So yeah, with the Zoom Fly 6 and the Pegasus Plus, quite an interesting combination of shoes. Quite different in a way, actually. I thought the Pegasus Plus is more of a unhelpful shoe, as it were. You feel like you're doing a lot of the work, and it's a bit similar to the regular Pegasus 41, and you feel like you have a bit of ground feel there, but not in a bad way. Not feel like you do a few miles and you're really struggling with your sore legs afterwards, although at the moment I seem to have got sore legs anyway. But yeah, one that I sort of like a fun shoe, but perhaps not quite as versatile as I thought it was going to be. And I think those Turbo 2s probably had their day back in sort of 2019, 2020, but I think now would feel a bit low stack. But as a shoe that do some fun miles, when I pick up the pace, more like a steady run shoe, I'd say for me, Pegasus Plus. Pegasus 41, probably more of an easy day shoe. One that shoe that I just want to put on to annoy everyone else, because I think I'm glad to get out in this shoe. And it's interesting with the Pegasus 41, which, if we scan down, did actually make the list here at 22nd. I always think, is it a shoe kind of bizarrely, in a snobbish way, that is the daily trainer for elite athletes? There's so many good runners running in the Pegasus 41, and so many runners who, being politely, aren't as good, who absolutely hate it. So yeah, it's kind of interesting that. I mean, what's your take on that? I mean, I know a lot of people hate the Pegasus 41. I think it's terrible. But yeah, sometimes I just seem to like running in it, and it is actually a good walking shoe as well. So when I was really struggling in the summer with run walk, it was ideal because I would do a bit of walking, break into a little run, and yeah, you kind of felt like a beginner. So in that sense, it's good. And Sue's got her pink Pegasus, and had donated a Pegasus 41 to her friend. So in Portugal, we were Roz wearing the lighter pink one and Sue in the bright pink one. I can always see Sue a mile off in the pink Pegasus, so if I'm never quite sure where she is, I can just look down. Well, obviously for me, you need to look up, don't you? So in 17th and 18th, we've got 2 Hoka shoes that didn't really grab my attention. The Cielo X1, bit of a sort of a heavier, not heavier, but a bit of a more built up, sort of cushioned racer shoe. And that was best liked from Mike of the Run Testers. And the Skyward X, that was a really massive shoe with a plate. In my size, it would have probably topped 400 grams. But interestingly, Ben Parks quite liked it. But yeah, did get some votes from people there, 5 with 27 points. More V5, another shoe, another Max Cushion shoe. kind of similar. That, or I think, oh, I'm sure it's good for some people. Hyperion 2, another shoe I didn't really like the look of, although it's much more racy, that one, isn't it? And interesting that the Deviate Nitro 3 way down in 21st place, although it was Kafuzi's favourite shoe of the year. And you kind of think that Kafuzi has quite a lot of influence, and kind of surprising that his favourite shoe was so down the list, wasn't it? We've already mentioned the Pegasus 41. Now, in 23rd place, we had the Evo SL. This was the shoe beloved by Robin from Road to Trail, who's doing very well. He's already up to 765 subscribers. I think it probably came a bit sort of late for everyone else, because, I mean, I haven't been able to get one yet, and they had this ridiculous raffle, didn't they, where you had to draw to win it, well, win the chance of buying one, and they must seem to have that many on sale anyway. So apparently they do my 13.5 in this one, unlike the Adidas Pro 4, where they do a UK 13 or a 14. That's the Adidas sizing, which, don't forget, is always half a size more than, say, Nike. So when people say, what's my normal size, you first of all have to say, well, what brand are you? And then you're talking about UK sizes or US sizes. I think there are some ShoeTubers who still seem to get confused by that. So if we scroll down the list a bit and just sort of see what other shoes that we haven't mentioned were the favourites. And the New Balance SC Trainer V3, that was liked most of all by one YouTuber, who I thought was quite a small channel, and it was voted by 15 people, but most of the points obviously came from that one YouTuber. So yeah, interesting that. And also we had some ASICS stability shoes here, liked by the Doctors of Running. I put that as David's Doctors of Running favourite shoe, and also Matt did a lot of work in it as well. I've recently got the P1 from Mount to Coast, which is a bit of a new take on a stability shoe, in that it's not actually really heavy and overly rigid, and actually did 9 miles in that one last night. So yeah, I thought that was quite a promising shoe. Looks a bit like a tennis shoe, that's the thing I might say against it. And Noosa Tri 16, that was well liked by Andy. I think that half the points came from him. Now, interesting, the SC Elite V4. And I could have sworn that Alex Yee wore a pair of them to win the Olympic triathlon. So why is it that that shoe doesn't get much love from YouTubers? I mean, it's lowly 30th place, only mentioned in the top 10 by 3 YouTubers. So yeah, you kind of think some of these other ones, like the Diadora Carbon, bit of a niche shoe. Not sure I've ever seen it on sale. And the Puma FastR Nitro Elite. Yeah, that's not a shoe that really sort of grabbed my attention from Puma. But I did actually do some good miles in the Velocity Nitro 3, next one down. And even more perhaps surprising is how low the Endorphin Pro 4 is. Look at that, 36th place. It was only in the top 10 by 2 ShoeTubers out of 26. That is terrible. Now, having said that, so Mr. Gusa Running said to me, there'll be his list of favourite shoes and then everyone else's. Now, his favourite shoe was the Supernova Rise by Adidas. I think that was possibly one of Ed Bud's least favourite shoes of 2024. So again, it's interesting how the different takes are, but I think Segusa Running kind of likes those neutral Pegasus type shoes, and I think that one appealed to him more than even the Pegasus, which slightly surprised me actually, because I thought the Pegasus would be higher up than it was in his list. And then actually a tie here, because literally the one vote at the top for the Wave Rebellion Flash 2, bit of a left field one there. That was Angie from the Doctors of Running. I got the vibe that was her favourite shoe of the year in the fact that she wore it the most. And Takumi Sen 10 not doing too much love. It got mentioned by 3 YouTubers, but yeah, a bit of a something and nothing shoe, I think, the Sen 10. I also think now that the Adios Pro 3 or 4 or the Evo 1 would be the favourite race shoe and for any distance. So yeah, I'm not quite sure whether the Sen 10 comes in. And now with the Adios 9 coming in, even lighter and more minimalist than the Takumi Sen, I think, yeah, it's got its favourites, but not really much love amongst the ShoeTubers, really, was it? And we got a few on shoes coming in there. Yeah, just about sort of making the list. Now, the Hyperion Elite 4 PB, I thought that was an interesting one. That was mentioned by Alex Velocty as a shoe that he's looking forward to. I think they've basically done a PB version, i.e. PB version of the Elite 4. I don't think it's actually out yet, and I imagine with Brooks it won't be available in my size because they've never done the Hyperion Elites past the UK 12 before. But yeah, it did seem to be getting better vibe. I think Kafuzi reviewed it the other day as well, so maybe one to look out for, though he didn't seem to be overly impressed by that. But the likes of Josh Kerr clearly running very well in that sort of shoe, so or you might argue someone like him would run well in anything. Now, I didn't really play too much on trail shoes, but you can see that the odd one makes a listing there. If someone mentioned it, I thought might as well include it in. I didn't really look at anyone's particular trail preferences. And there were a few shoes that weren't actually 2024 shoes. The Vaporfly 3, I decided not to rank that one myself because it really would have been a lot higher on the list than some of the shoes on there. And also the Boston 12 there was also a shoe from last year. Got taken 1 point from a couple of YouTubers there for each one. And there were some other shoes mentioned as sort of honourable mentions, which didn't actually have a ranking, so they fell outside the notional top 10. You can see that the Adios Pro 4 crept into the listing. That's because Kafusi mentioned it as an honourable mention, but I think he decided not to rank it properly because it's not really a shoe that was generally available in 2024, was it? And there's a few other ones there, rather left field ones for sure. And there's the P1 stability shoe that I mentioned. I've put it as an honourable mention for myself, largely because the fact I've only just got it and I've only done 2 runs in it, so I thought it was a bit early to rank it, but it might make the top 10, depending on how many shoes I get this year. And it was also mentioned by Believe in the Run as their second best stability shoe, Kyono 31 being the best one. They had so many categories that it was actually impossible to even give the second placer in the category any points, so that's why they kind of listed but without any points. So I hope you enjoyed this little take on all the best of 2024 shoes as we move into 2025. What's this year going to bring? What I think our favourites will be? Vaporfly 4 is coming. I'm a bit disappointed now with the Vaporfly 3, so one I'm being keen to get. The Streetfly 2 as well is going to be another one that's going to be quite exciting, isn't it? And if ASICS ever do these shoes in my size, then maybe I'll finally get to test them. And also, if I can actually get an Adios Pro 4 to fit, then that's one exciting. And the Deviate Nitro Elite 3, which is really last year's shoe, 2024. I'll have to see how that one is. I'm hoping that will be, at the very worst, a good super trainer for me, a bit like the Zoom Fly 6, and perhaps a bit faster because it's meant to be as light as the Vaporfly 3. So anyway, what are your favourites here? Do they align with people's choices here? Which ranking would you have put? Be keen to discuss further in the comments. So if you found this interesting, like and subscribe to that, and see you next one then. Bye!